So with the best 20 movies of the first half of 2017 over and done with, it's time to get to the fun list. The worst 20 films from January to June of 2017. At least in my opinion. So like I said in my best of countdown, I'm only looking at the first half of 2017. January to June. Anything past June will not be counted in this countdown. Such as Wish Upon, which had a July release date. And even though I've seen quite a few movies of this year, almost reaching 100 now, there are still movies that I haven't seen, and probably would have made this list, such as 50 Shades Darker, Don't Hang Up, Lavender, Devil in the Dark, Rupture, Black Site Delta, Absolutely Anything, Lowriders, Black Butterfly, Inconceivable, and The Book of Henry, which, hearing from other people, it sounds like The Book of Henry might be a entertainingly bad movie, but still a bad movie. And I'd like to have some dishonorable mentions of this countdown, even though I am going over 20 films. These films didn't quite make the cut. Baywatch, Fist Fight, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, The Long Haul, Smurfs, The Lost Village, Chips, The Mummy, The House, and Rock Dog. Now some of these aren't horrible films, but some of them are more of the 2.5 star range that just got below 3, not because of personal score, but rather the more critical score where I judge different elements, give them each a score, average them out, that sort of thing. But I can tell you this, everything in my worst 20 is either 2 stars or lower. My number 20, surprisingly, because for some people, this will be their worst film of the year, because a lot of people, they don't go to see bad movies. Who would, right? Except if you're doing movie reviews or try to have the excuse of being a movie reviewer in order to go see bad movies. But some people legitimately thought this would be a good movie, and out of all the bad movies, this is probably the most hated of the people that went to go see it and thought, oh, this will be good, and oh, this is a huge letdown, huge disappointment, this is a terrible film. It's only my number 20, because I still can say that there might be 19 films worse than it. Number 20, The Circle. Now I will say this, there are some good things about The Circle. Some of the camera work, the technology introduced in this movie. There is some interesting sci-fi elements to it, especially the sort of cult feeling of the company. There are elements in this film that could work, and I definitely wasn't bored throughout the whole film. But at the same time, there are quite a few things that are just plain bad. Both Emma Watson and the main kid from Boyhood were the worst offenders of this film when it comes to bad acting, delivery. And dialogue was pretty bad. The thriller aspect of the film was really forced in, and it's supposed to be a thriller, but it doesn't feel like a thriller at all. It's really poorly crafted, and a lot of the stuff is just mind-bogglingly dumb, in my opinion. It's only my number 20. Get ready for a doozy list. My number 19 isn't so much a bad film as it is just a generic, bland action film that tries to be over the top but doesn't go over the top enough in order to have Fast and Furious status. It is XXX Return of Xander Cage. I liked the first XXX movie. I enjoyed it. Second one, not as much. And this one just felt like a generic, bland blend of Point Break meets Fast and the Furious meets XXX. And you think that combination would work really well, but it just doesn't feel all that well planned. It doesn't feel as good of a story, and it's just bland action film that doesn't go over the top enough, but too over the top to be taken serious. And so overall, I just didn't like it. My number 18 is probably the big bad Christian film of this year that I don't like. It is The Shack. Now I have a review of this, so I don't think I'll go into too much detail because I'd rather you see the review instead. And not only that, I'm having trouble remembering all the things that I said about this film. I remember saying that the CGI was awful, and honestly, you could kind of forgive that because it's not a big budget movie or anything like that, but it tries to be stylized, but it just looks cartoony and it just looks really off-putting and just doesn't feel right. I do feel that there is something to this story. This feels like a movie adaptation where the book is much more detailed, much better, and just a poorly adapted film from a novel. This has that feeling even though I haven't read the novel itself. I just get that vibe from this film because there's something in there, some messages, some deeper things, some less Christian values and more of just spiritualism and religion in general, where they try to combine other religions with Christianity in this film to, like I said, to be more spiritual, be more for every religion rather than just one. I think there's something going in it. There's something there, but it's just not executed in the way that it needs to be for this film to be successful and to be entertaining and to be dramatic and good. For the most part, acting is hit or miss. There's some that are really great, some that are just plain awful. And the lessons that this character learns as he's visiting with God, the Holy Spirit, and Jesus, while there is something to the lessons, it felt like we understood it way before our main character did, and it felt like, okay, just move along, you're going too detailed, too overlong, just get to the point because we already know what the point of this moral is, we know what this lesson that you're trying to teach our main character. And there's just some things in it where I can understand what they're trying to go for the message, but it just makes it sound so stupid in this film. And for most of the ending, I'm just thinking to myself as I watch this, why did they do that for this movie? Like, who decided that was good enough for the theater, and who decided, oh, this will be a perfect ending? Some of the things in it, it's just, really? My number 17 is a January horror movie. It was either limited release or straight to DVD, maybe a little bit of both, I'm not sure. It is The Axe Murders of Villisca? Yeah, Villisca. I think that's how it was. I saw it only once so far, and it was about a few months ago. Honestly, I'm surprised that this has a better score than some of the ones even lower on my list. Or higher, technically. This can definitely go higher as I rewatch some of these movies again. Oh joy. I don't want to get too much into this because there's some things that I can understand what it's going for, but at the same time, it's so slow to do it. It's not suspenseful. It is nowhere near anything horrific that I can sense. And it's just, it has potential, but it's just wasted in this movie. It's like a haunting movie. The house is either haunted or there's a spirit, and it's just, Again, nothing I can get too upset about, but nothing particularly good. Alright, my number 16, I have very mixed feelings for it because where part of me understands, oh, this is a minimalistic film, it's letting us grasp the story and the message and letting us discover what it really means ourselves, but at the same time it does it so poorly and so boringly and just really feels like a drag to get through. There are so many other movies that try to let the audience figure out the story and the themes and everything about the movie themselves while still being entertaining, and this is not one of them. Unfortunately, it is Claire in motion. Acting is good for the main characters, side characters atrocious, story it's not really a thriller and people will go into it thinking it's a thriller. They're going to be disappointed, they're going to outwardly hate this film. Like, if you love this film, I can understand it. If you hate this film, I can understand it, because I feel the same way for the people that love it and the people that hate it. I am completely torn in the middle when it comes to this movie. It's just a boring movie to sit through, and there's not a lot going on and not enough emotional depth, and once you watch it a few times, it really wears on you. I saw it a few times in order to review it, and I'll probably see it another time when I do a more in-depth review of it, if I do that. Okay, my number 15 is a horror movie that probably should have deserved a January release, but we got it in February. It is Rings. Now, it's been a long time since I saw Ring and Ring 2, so I didn't realize just how many continuity errors that this movie did, where it's trying to be a soft reboot, but at the same time not really rebooting because it's technically a sequel. Now, when I saw the film, I definitely understood that it had the same exact structure as the first one, and is probably a proper sequel to the first one, but at the same time, again, it's been so long that I saw the first ones that I gave this one a better score, not a better score than the first two, don't get me wrong there, but I gave this movie a better score because I didn't understand the continuity errors that this film made. And I saw the potential in this film that other people didn't seem to see. At that same time, we're getting the same thing as we did the first one. The trailer really ruins it, the twist ending, because you understand once you see the trailer and you hear about the rebirth etched into her hand in Braille. Once you realize that and the trailer gives that away, you know right from the get-go what's going to happen at the end, what the whole purpose of this mystery is, and it's going to be the same thing as the first one, where you go through all this mystery thinking you're solving everything, thinking you're appeasing the ghost, only to die in the end. So definitely throughout the whole point of this movie, I knew it was going to happen, I knew this wouldn't matter, and that can really wear on you. At the same time, I don't really hate this film too much. I think it's more meh. I see potential to it, but overall it's definitely one of the worst films I've seen this year, because I haven't seen too many awful, awful, awful ones. Alright, my number 14, didn't review this one. It's a foreign film. I'm trying to think. I know Chinese, I think? It has Jackie Chan in it. I'm guessing Chinese. It is Railroad Tigers, and this is a war movie, action, heist, comedy. It's almost a little bit of everything, to be honest. And because of that, the tones of this movie is just everywhere. And some of the more intense scenes, or the scenes that are supposed to be suspenseful, or I think is supposed to be suspenseful, is played off comedically and just really ruins the tone of the film. There's not a lot to these characters either. It's similar to a heist film or a war film. All these characters are either cliched or are one type of character. And so there's not a lot of depth to it, but even with characters like that, some war movies, some heist movies can add depth. This movie didn't. Honestly, I think the only good thing about this movie that I highly enjoyed, and it's enough to boost it to a 2-star rating, or maybe even a 1.5, is the fact that it's Jackie Chan, he's fun, and it had not his fighting style, but more of his acrobats that we don't see as often anymore. And some of the acrobatic choreography was handled well. And there was some decent gunplay in this movie as well. And I think the climax at the end was fun and entertaining and worth one watch at least. Also, what really helps this film is seeing it after Skip Trace. Because if you see Skip Trace, almost anything looks amazing. My number 13 is 47 Meters Down. It's our shark movie of the year because The Shallows was pretty successful, and it was actually a surprise film for me. 47 Meters Down, when I saw that trailer, or at least the trailer that I thought was hilarious, I had a feeling this would be bad. It is better than I thought, but at the same time, it really ruins it when I don't care about the characters, the acting wasn't all that good, and the story is minimalistic. And again, minimalistic is good. Heck, my favorite film this year I would classify as a minimalistic film. But again, what helps a lot of those is the story that you can piece together yourself and really get into the story, as well as characters you care about. Dialogue, characters, atrocious in this movie. There are moments where there is genuine suspense, but I couldn't feel that suspense because I just wanted the characters to get eaten by sharks. That's something you don't want in a serious, suspenseful horror film. And the CGI sharks and the sharks that were put into the film, like real sharks that were edited into the film, looks really good. Camera work was good too. It had its moments. And there are people that were affected by this movie feel this is a really great shark movie. Again, it's the characters and the dialogue that really make me hate the film as much as I do. But there are things I can understand, especially if you're afraid of sharks, if you're scared of running out of air really deep underwater. Well, this is a film that could easily scare you. Alright, my number 12 is a romance film. Cheesy, just awful, and it tries so hard to be a indie romance hit. It is everything. Now, where this film definitely has the elements to make it a great indie, quirky romance film, it really ruins all the potential it has for those elements. The cheesiness in this movie, the more conventional moments in the film, the camera work that almost feels like a Lifetime movie, the acting, the dialogue, just everything about this film, just every little thing that you can appreciate just feels like wasted potential and just doesn't feel good enough and feels too generic for a film like this. I don't want to talk too much because I don't want to do a bigger review of this one day, because I didn't get to review this one yet. My number 11 is the other romantic movie this year. Another cheesy romantic film with sci-fi elements in it. And what do you know? The same writer as Collateral Beauty. It is The Space Between Us. This is probably even cheesier and feels worse because, again, this movie as well has potential at being good if it wanted to be good. And the writer didn't focus on, oh, let's try to do this because I'm clever, I'm going to show you how clever I am, let's add these twists and that we see coming a mile away. Honestly, the tonal shifts are just as crazy as Collateral Beauty because this is the same writer and I think it shows, honestly. One moment you can go super sad and supposed to really feel bad about this character or want him to live and feel like, oh, this kid's really in danger, and then the next scene, the literal next scene is him having the time of his life and you're supposed to feel happy that he's free. Oh my God. There is just so many things in this movie that's just so baffling, entertainingly bad, and I did have a little bit of fun watching this movie. And there's just things that I'm just like, wow, I can't believe this is in this movie. I feel uncomfortable. If you want to make fun of a cheesy romantic movie that thinks it's smart, you might have a blast with this movie, honestly.